we bring you a special report from Syria 1 year on from the fall of the Assad regime. It has been 1 year since the fall of the Assad regime in Syria, with the longtime leader Bashar al-Assad fleeing to Russia. Now, 12 months on, the new leader, Ahmed al-Sharaa, is trying to hold together a fractious nation. Despite his former links to al-Qaeda, he now has the support of the White House, but he still faces many challenges, as Jeremy Bowen reports now from Damascus.
Rebels in Douma, on the edge of Damascus, dug a subterranean city at the height of the war against Bashar al-Assad's regime. It had command posts, kitchens, a hospital, and tunnels big enough for vehicles. Now it's abandoned. Part of the debris of war in the country Assad broke as he tried to save the regime he inherited from his father. This is why rebels needed the tunnels. They held out in Douma for 7 years until 2018, in the end, worn down by the Russian firepower Vladimir Putin added to Assad's ruthless tactics.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
The tunnels are part of the legacy of the fight against the Assad dictatorship that still dominates everything here. A year ago, Assad's troops stopped fighting for him, and President Putin was no longer willing or able to save the regime. When I was last in these tunnels in 2018, it looked as if the regime, with a lot of help from the Russians, was close to winning the war. All that was left in rebel hands was the province of Idlib, which became the stronghold of Ahmed al-Sharaa and his men. Ahmed al-Sharaa, who a year ago overthrew the Assads and is now the president of a country with some massive problems. A year ago, most Syrians celebrated the fall of the regime, but before the parties were over in Damascus, some fled. That's because the men who captured the city came from a movement that grew out of al-Qaeda. And until he broke with the jihadists, their leader, Ahmed al-Sharaa, had been a senior al-Qaeda commander. A few days later, in the presidential palace, he told me he'd respect every Syrian's rights and said Syria was no threat to anyone. A year later, Donald Trump believes him. Sharaa still hasn't shown he can heal Syria's violent sectarian conflicts. In March, his own men took part in massacres that killed 1,400 people from Assad's Alawite sect. It's not clear he can control his own forces. In the Alawite heartland on the Mediterranean, they're seen as occupiers. Uniting a devastated country where many want revenge if they can't get justice is the biggest challenge, among plenty of others. Syria is contaminated with unexploded munitions. A British charity, the Halo Trust, is making them safe in Deraa, where the uprising against Assad started in 2011.
I recognize that. Okay.
This is the Schwab.
Russian-made cluster munitions are among the deadly litter left by the war. They are lethal if they're moved, so each has to be blown up. They're clearing munitions from a former military base outside Deraa, where a family are grazing their flock.
There were people collecting gunpowder. The kids didn't know what it was, so they set fire to it, and that's how they were hurt.
All Suleiman Mohammed's sons carry the scars. All had narrow escapes. 1/3 of 1,600 casualties in Syria this year from explosive remnants of war are children. 12-year-old Ali's lungs were damaged by poisonous smoke from a blast 6 months ago. Life here, his father said, is very hard, with no mercy or comfort. South of Damascus, another problem. Israel wants the large area it monitors from the top of the Golan Heights, which it took from Syria in 1967, to be demilitarized. After Assad fell, Israel occupied more land in the foothills, very close to the village of Beit Jin. The village was still mourning 13 residents killed in an Israeli raid 3 days earlier. The IDF said it was an arrest operation. The Damascus government says it's a war crime. The IDF, with 6 men wounded, had to retreat in a hurry when local men fought back with weapons Israel had given them to fight Assad. Israel's routine use of force is worrying Donald Trump. After the raid, he called for dialogue instead.
Right now, their biggest problem is with the Israelis, but the people in this village, like so many Syrians, have never been able to control their own lives. 50 years of oppression by the Assad regime, years of war fighting it, and now they're caught up in the turbulence of the last violent 12 months of change, not just here in Syria, but right across the region.
Arriving back was Halil Abu Daha, wounded in the Israeli raid.
I was in my house with my children. We were trying to find a safe place. They shot at my 2 daughters. One was hit and the other died instantly. When I picked her up, I was shot in the hand.
At their home, Huda, 9 years old, was recovering from a bullet wound. They sheltered with the dead body of Hibba, who was 17, for 2 hours after the raid. The women of the family supporting the children's mother, Lina, are in despair.
Our children are living in hell here. There is no safety for them. How will we live? We want safety. We go to sleep and wake up afraid.
In all this devastation, the economy shows signs of life, though most Syrians live in poverty. A better future depends on peace, and that is still fragile. After years away, families are returning here to Douma in the Damascus suburbs. Children born into war now have a chance. Their father, Abdul Hadi, says, of course we're coming home. A country can only be rebuilt by its people. Syria, still struggling, feels lighter without the crushing, cruel weight of the Assads. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, Damascus.